Welcome to the Smart Advocacy to Help Our Planet series, where we see that climate action isn't about sacrifice, it's about smart design and collective agency. Today's advocacy idea is climate footprint labels, and it's basically a short story about something we already know well, that we manage what we measure. We'll look at how we got here, whether climate change is solvable, what we can do about it, and then how citizens actually move policy. Here's our beautiful planet. As humans on the planet, we know that we use resources and we also add pollution. We need to be good stewards of our Earth, and we've got lots of things to think about. But one of the big ones is this molecule, carbon dioxide. We're adding carbon dioxide to the atmosphere at an alarming rate through the combustion of fossil fuels. It's like pulling a pile of warm blankets over the Earth, and the average temperature is going up. The science has settled. We know that it's us, and we need to take urgent, smart action to address climate change. Per Dr. Hannah Ritchie, with what we have now, we could be the first generation to solve this. Here's why. Think of it as a bridge from where we are today to the sustainable world we seek. The bridge needs three foundations. The bottom layer is technical feasibility, the technologies and tools, most of which already exist. The middle layer is economic feasibility, the financial systems and incentives, also largely in place. And the third foundation is social feasibility. That's us, asking, choosing, and supporting smart policy. Without that third layer, the bridge doesn't carry weight. Within social feasibility, there are 5 remaining gaps to close. It's because of these gaps that climate change is still a systemic issue, a broken system. The good news is that the gaps are known and the fixes exist. We are the activation step. Keep an eye on this social feasibility layer. We'll see it again. Okay, I mentioned 5 gaps. Turns out that we can fix them with 4 advocacy ideas, not 100, just 4. And all 4 are free to ask for and essentially free to implement. This is great news, but it's a lot for one video. So today we're just going to focus on the first gap and the first idea. You can find the other gaps and ideas on our website, and we'll be making more videos for those as well. 2 more background slides before we jump in though. First of all, it's useful to know where those greenhouse gases show up in our lives to know how to best address them. The world currently emits about 50 billion tons per year of carbon dioxide equivalent in greenhouse gases. Most of those emissions come from parts of the economy where consumers and producers lack clear information. Products and services, food and diet, freight and waste. That adds up to about 25 gigatons per year, roughly half of total emissions, in large, flexible categories that can respond quickly when transparency improves. Okay, we said that the advocacy idea was climate footprint labels, but you might be asking yourself, what's a climate footprint? Well, today, every product has a climate footprint, which is simply the sum of all greenhouse gases that were emitted in the creation of the product. A climate footprint is similar to a carbon footprint, but the climate footprint takes into account all greenhouse gases and not just carbon dioxide. We might burn fossil fuels for many reasons while creating a product. Here's an example from Oatly, where they're making oat milk. In this case, they grew and harvested the oats, transported the oats, processed them, made the product, and then transported that product to the store. Today, it's likely that they had to burn some fossil fuels in all of those steps. Good news is that there is already an international standard for how to calculate a product's climate footprint, and some producers are already voluntarily labeling their products with the footprint. Now that we know about climate footprints and know what sectors we're targeting, let's look at that first gap that we mentioned, the disconnected market. Here on this scene, we have 2 groups of people, the producers that make the food and products and other services, I'll call them FOPs for this presentation, and the rest of us that consume them. For decades, there has been a disconnect between consumers and producers. Consumers say that they care about the climate, Producers who work hard to earn our business say, honestly, they're just not sure if people take climate into consideration when they make a purchase. Neither side can actually tell, and capitalism can't go to work to solve this problem. This is the disconnected market gap. So what happens in the disconnected market? The rest of us that care about climate change say things like, please switch to cleaner energy sources. Producers say things like, let's make a new color with a new scent. And the rest of us keep being frustrated that we're not heard. What do we need? Smart policy to fix this gap. And since we're talking about policy, we're going to need the governments to join us. Here's how the advocacy idea number 1 works. We understand there's already an ISO standard to calculate product climate footprints. That's us talking to the government. We would like to see mandatory climate footprint labels on products so that we can make informed choices. Government does its very important job. It says, how many of you are asking for this? That's where we come in. Remember that social feasibility layer we saw earlier? Government can't move unless we raise our voices. If enough of us do, then governments will tell producers, we're going to start requiring climate footprint labels from all of you. Now, having spent my career in industry, I can tell you that if you tell a producer that consumers might make a buying choice based upon a parameter that they've not yet had to disclose, the reaction of the producers will be something like this. Many of the producers already do the carbon accounting, but they haven't had to report it on a label yet. If they weren't already paying attention to this, they will now. What comes next? Capitalism immediately goes to work, well before labels are actually required, because there's a chance that those labels might actually drive consumer decisions. When they look at their supply chains, companies start harvesting the low-hanging fruit, easy reductions that were always there, just waiting for us to pull the manage what we measure lever. That's where most of the emission reduction begins and happens, because producers know we're going to look at the labels. Also, consumers get empowered with more information, and if they so choose, they could reward producers that tried a bit harder. If they do, they reduce emissions too. We estimate that through this simple mechanism, climate footprint labels could reduce global emissions by over 3 gigatons per year, 3 billion tons. And producers will closely watch those signals. If consumers choose lower footprint products, it will reinforce their resolve to continue to reduce. So what would climate footprint labels look like? Here's a tale of 2 barbecue sauces in Canada, Lakeside Smokehouse and Coastline Pantry. Did one of these producers try harder to address the climate footprint of their products? We have no way of knowing right now. But with climate footprint labels like this, here's a mock-up of what they might look like in Canada. We can easily see that Lakeside Smokehouse has a lower carbon footprint and therefore a smaller environmental impact from greenhouse gases. What might have led to Lakeside's smaller footprint of 0.45 kilograms? Many things. As we saw with Oatly, maybe they source tomatoes locally, so the ingredients don't travel as far. Maybe greenhouse grown with cleaner energy. Maybe more efficient processing or lighter packaging or a shorter distribution distance. There are usually many ways producers can reduce a product's footprint. All right, so if we want this kind of policy, how do we get there? There are lots of ways, but remember, it's important for it to be publicly visible for politicians to know that enough of the population is asking for it. Many countries have an electronic petition or referendum process. An e-petition is an easy, visible signal that includes a counter for the number of supporters. And if you're in Canada, you have an e-petition available to you right now. MP Patrick Weiler of the West Vancouver Sunshine Coast Sea to Sky Country riding sponsored this petition asking for climate footprint labels on products in Canada, and here is the QR code. It's 206 words asking for smart policy. If you're like most Canadians, you've never signed an e-petition before. You might have some questions, like, how long does it take? The answer is about 2 minutes. You simply find the petition, read it, click sign the petition button, and provide the information listed here. You will be asked by the government to confirm your email address. Is my name made public? No. Signatories to petitions are kept confidential by the government. The only thing that shows on the website is the number of signatures with a counter for each province. Signatories' personal information is safeguarded and then destroyed 6 months after the petition closes. Who can sign? This is one of my favorite things about e-petitions. The answer is any Canadian citizen or resident that has an email address and a phone number. That means it's also open to younger Canadians who will inherit this planet, but who don't currently have a voice in our democratic process until they reach the age of majority. They can have their voice heard too. Canadians overseas, you can support too. How many signatures do we need? That's the toughest question to answer. One important number is 500, as 500 supporters triggers a formal response from Canada. And we know that more is better, but there's no exact number. Certainly if we get 100,000 supporters, that really says Canadians are serious and the government needs to listen. If we got to 1.4 million signatures, 3.5% of Canadians, that's the threshold that research on social movements says drives significant change. So more is better, and we appreciate your signature. Okay, I signed the petition and it only took me 30 seconds. What else can I do? Well, once you've signed, the next most important thing to do is share it with others. That's the multiplication signal that helps the silent supermajority become visible. You could reach out directly to your MP, either in person or by writing an email or a letter. That helps your MP to know that you personally care, but it can also help if you answer their questions. These are nonpartisan ideas that are good for any government, so you could write to all of the parties in your riding, saying it's just smart policy that you'd like to see. Finally, saying thank you is one of the most underappreciated ways to move policy. For instance, if you're in the Sea to Sky riding, you could say thank you to MP Weiler for sponsoring it. Our representatives work for us, and any appreciation signals safe space for more action on these important topics. All right, let's fast forward a few years. Canadians spoke. What happened? Well, governments did their job. They listened, created regulations to implement smart policy, and then got out of the way. Producers said, now we know how important this is to consumers, and we compete to earn their business. The rest of us, we're reading the labels and we're rewarding producers that try harder. That's pretty good, but since we're writing this future, let's look at some of the other possible outcomes. Other countries followed. The world quickly started bending the emissions curve. The implementation wasn't so hard, and we wondered why we hadn't already done this. And we got excited about ideas 2 to 4, since number 1 was so straightforward and impactful. There you have it. We would like everyone to live well and act wisely and shape the future, because a healthy planet is possible by design. And as you've seen, you are the hero of this story. Please take a moment to take action on climate footprint labels and tell your friends. Our voices are incredibly important to catalyze the changes we need. Let's activate meaningful action together. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next video.